Thanks for joining us this week on Email Geeks at Home Drinking Coffee. Join your hosts Chris Marriott and Paul Schreiner each week as they talk email marketing, life, purpose, faith, but mainly email marketing. If you're looking for some normalcy in these crazy times, you've come to the right place.
Welcome to Email Geeks at Home Drinking Coffee. My name is Paul Schreiner. I am back home in Chattanooga, Tennessee. With me is my colleague, friend, co-host, and speaker extraordinaire, Christopher Marriott. How are you today, Chris?
I'm great, Paul. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again this week on Email Geeks at Home Drinking Coffee.
That's a mouthful, I'll tell you what.
What do you have for us today, Paul? What do you have? And I mean in terms of, not in terms of bits, I mean in terms of guests. What do you have for us today?
No, we have a great guest, Michael Lewis, our shared friend.
Yep.
Longtime friend, really fantastic guy, great story to share. Really looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
So why don't we get to it and bring Michael in?
Absolutely. Welcome back to Email Geeks at Home Drinking Coffee. We now have our guest with us today, Michael Lewis. Did I say that name correctly?
You did, sir. Thank you, Paul Schreiner.
It's great to have you here, Michael. As always, I am Paul's co-host, Chris Marriott, and again, we're delighted to have a blogger, author, and email marketer,
Superhero,
Lewis, joining us today, where we're going to talk about all of his endeavors and what he's been up to over the past several weeks, months, and including his
stay-at-home order. Are you staying busy?
So we're delighted to have Michael here.
Thank you.
This is, in continuing our Unbreakable series that we have here in season 2. This week we call it Unbreakable Career. The timing is perfect to have Michael on. For those of you who've been with us since the beginning, you'll remember back in April, we had Ryan Phelan on. And that was really, he was our first guest, in fact. That will be a trivia question one day. And on that episode, we talked about what many of us, and Michael included, many of us in the email marketing industry were dealing with, which was the layoffs that occurred right around the time of the lockdown. Many companies had layoffs to try to cut their costs, and Michael included. And that was a theoretical discussion that day where...
Right. I mean, it was a headwind we were all kind of feeling coming.
Right.
But it was all, hey, let's talk in theory.
Right. And let's talk about, what to do if it happens to you. Well, it happened to Michael, and what we wanted to talk about. And again, there's good news, so we won't keep you waiting. He started a new job, so we'll talk about that. But what struck us, Paul and I, about Michael, and again, we will let him talk, I promise, is he did exactly what we had talked about.
I know. He read the script we provided.
Right. He read the.
I memorized it.
He listened.
I'm a professional.
But what Michael Lewis did was not just focus inward after he was laid off on himself, but rather he chronicled his experience in his blog, and in doing so offered advice and hope to other people going through what he was going through. And I think, to me, that's remarkable. Most of us, as we talked about that day, you want to curl up in a ball and say, woe is me. Why did this happen to me? Life's not fair. And life isn't fair. But rather than do that, Michael, again, decided he would use what he was going through as a way to help other people going through it. And it really took him, much in the way that Paul and I use this podcast to sort of get out of ourselves and during the whole lockdown and do something that we hadn't been doing previously. I think Michael and his blog became that outlet for him. So Michael, I will let you talk. So talk a little bit about,
ask him what he's drinking.
Oh, right. Michael, what are you drinking?
I hope this isn't heresy, but I don't drink coffee. I've had
I don't
one cup
either.
of coffee in my whole life. So today I'm going to break out I feel like Howard Stern, the raspberry Snapple.
Yeah.
Controversial. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a controversial move. And to be fair, neither Chris nor I knew anything about the Diet Snapple. Like,
No.
I'm really. Do we
That's
continue?
live,
I'm asking, do we continue?
live. That's what
It's
happens
up to
when you're
you.
live. Anything
It's
can
up to
happen.
you. Am I getting bumped?
We'll leave you on just because I don't think producer Dave has backed up anybody, any backups.
It is holiday week.
That's true. So, Paul, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Boon Buna coffee. It's Ethiopian.
Nice.
From my friend Carlo Person out of Seattle. She sent this over to me. A friend of hers, Rose Sit, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm drinking out of my new mug, Chris, that says,
Look at that.
I love VT. Or I guess Maple Leaf VT, which I do Maple Leaf VT.
Yeah, and for those vast numbers of listeners of this program, in lieu of the heart on the I love VT, it's a red maple leaf. So
As it should be.
I think it's orange.
I Canada, Vermont, but that could just be me.
Anyway, we're good.
We have a lot of Canadians on the show. As usual.
Yes, Santo Domingo.
Dominican coffee. Last week, if you listened in, Paul described what the vacation might have been that he and his wife were going to take there. I don't think we need to relive that, but if you want to hear the details of the vacation that wasn't, tune into the after show from last week where Paul discusses the vacation that did not happen.
And it did not. That is true.
And it sounded awesome. So
I will say this about coffee, just before we part ways with coffee, is I love the smell of coffee.
Yeah.
So there's something about being in a Starbucks or Timothy's or Tim Hortons when I'm going up north, eh?
Yeah.
And, I love the smell. But the first or second time I had a taste of coffee, I was so disappointed compared to the smell.
So there is a path forward for you if you like the smell. Extraction method matters, right? How you get the coffee out of the bean. There is a method called toddy brewing. It's a cold brew. A lot of the coffee places are sort of taking that on. What it does is the bitterness that you're talking about that you don't like is the acid in the coffee.
Right.
And so what this is, and I can pull it out maybe next week or maybe even later today, but it's a big cylinder and you soak the grounds in cold water for like 12 to 24 hours. And because you don't stir it ever, you just pour it over and you just let it sit. None of the acid comes out of the beans. So the coffee tastes like,
I learned something today. I learned, yeah. Look at this. I thought we were supposed to teach others, but I'm learning. Thank you.
You know what? Coffee that doesn't taste like coffee isn't coffee. So, I'm not signing up for that.
Right. It has to be Johnny Bench pitching Mr. Coffee.
Well,
otherwise Chris won't drink it.
No, you know what? The absolute best coffee commercial of all time. And I know this because in a prior life, I worked on the Maxwell House Coffee account. I've never talked about that. We'll have to talk about that at one point. But yes, I used to do Maxwell House Coffee commercials back in the day. And this wasn't a commercial we did. This was from the 60s, but it was the one that General Foods was most proud of. And it featured a wife. It was black and white. It was that old. Wife putting coffee on to brew, and the camera then cuts to her husband, who's asleep in bed, and his nose starts twitching. And obviously, he's smelling the coffee brewing. And he gets up and gets out of bed and goes downstairs, and she hands him a cup of coffee. End of commercial. It's much better if you actually saw it than my description. But
I don't know, Chris. I was on the edge of my seat when you were talking about his nose flaring. That's entertainment.
It captured the essence of the coffee.
It did. It's almost like the audience could smell the coffee in the black and white TV screens.
Thank you for saving me, Michael.
You betcha.
Okay, back to the program. So Michael, talk about your experience. Starting with getting the word that you were laid off, and how what you did. Talk about that a little.
Yeah. It's an eerie feeling because literally I'd already begun to work from home. It was March 24th. It was a Tuesday morning. I had got out for a run. I had showered, readied for myself for work, on with the day. And at about 9:15 a.m. Eastern, I got a calendar invite that says quick touch base from HR. And I said, I think I've even been part of the other side of that conversation, quick touch base with some people in the past, right? So
Yeah.
I basically knew.
We should
And my
we should
friend,
have an episode dedicated to letting people know, because quick touch base is
it's
horrendous.
game over. Yeah. and it really was quick, because I think she had to do, the company let go of 86 people that day. So
Okay.
it wasn't just me.
Right.
And my friend Tabitha, who's the one who called me, she's in HR. I basically, the minute she said good morning, I said, Tabitha, I know what this is about. So let's, don't feel uncomfortable. You and I have talked a lot over the years. You're my friend. And so then she really kind of let me have it. So basically I knew when I saw the quick touch base invite.
Right.
And I almost had like an hour and a half or whatever it was between the receipt of the invite and the actual layoff to process it, to think of some questions I needed to ask and all that.
Right.
So I began to kind of I was mentally prepared by the time the axe fell, so to speak. Interestingly, in the Northeast, I live in New Jersey. The day it was a beautiful day, weather-wise. So I basically just took the day off after I got let go, and just I called a couple people, said, "Hey, I'm not going to be at that meeting at 1:00 that you're expected to be at, right?" So I called everybody who was depending on me that day for stuff. And then I basically just took a nice long walk around the neighborhood. I sat out on my front step and took in some sunshine. Apparently at the time, the coronavirus, people were telling you, get outside, get air, things like that. So I just really kind of let myself breathe a little bit. And then I really started to think about, I've been working for 30 years. So I started to think about all the people that I would probably call or reach out to in the next week or two to say, hey, I'm a free agent, I'm in the market. And actually by the end of that day, the same day that I got laid off, I started feeling very blessed and thankful for the people that I knew I could reach out to over the next several weeks to at least get things started. And so literally the next morning, Wednesday morning, I blogged about this as well. I wrote down a list, literally on a piece of paper, of all the people that I feel like I could call and ask for a favor and not feel like I was only calling them when I need them, so to speak, right? These are people that I've tried to keep in touch with, network with, support in their careers, do good things for them. If I was their direct report, I called a lot of my bosses, Chris included. And that's where I really started to get, my feet back under me, so to speak. So again, that Tuesday was a feel sorry for oneself day. And then Wednesday I got back up, but I said, let's do this. There's a lot of people who are much worse off than me. I'm very lucky to have been somebody who's been working for a while. I'm fortunate enough where I've been able to, my wife works, so I wasn't the only breadwinner in the house.
Good.
And we've saved up a few bucks over the years. So we were not going to have a food insecurity situation, anytime soon.
Will you talk to sort of that moment that you described where you get that call and you feel overwhelmed, or there's certainly a piece of that. I know the number of folks I've talked to who've gone through this recently, and it's their first time, right?
Me too. It was my first time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then,
welcome to the club, right?
For those of us who've been laid off many times, hop on the bus.
Right. For those of us who would have to say, which time are you talking about?
Right. It'd be like,
Chris and Paul, I've been welcomed into your club, I guess.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You got a rookie.
It's a big club.
Yep.
Right. So, but talk about because I think you nailed it, and I really want to sort of tease that out a little bit about sort of managing the fear, right?
Yes.
Because you're standing on the edge of a cliff looking down, and you're like, I'm about to die. I'm going to fall off this cliff, and I've got nowhere to go. Talk about that, because I want to come back to this here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But talk about, how did you manage that?
It's an empty
feeling.
Yeah, no, it's empty. And for what it's worth, you feel rejected. You basically just feel like you've been asked off the team, so to speak. Whether it's you get cut on a team that you dreamed of playing for, or in a play that you were hoping to get a major part and maybe you didn't get any part. It's basically like, you're not in this club anymore. So that's the awfulness of being laid off, is that these are people that you just spent the majority of your waking hours with over the last few years. And so all of a sudden now you go from spending the majority of your waking hours with these good people,
Right.
to not really being able to talk to them. And
Right.
and the other thing is they're even more busy today than they were yesterday, because now they're picking up all my work.
And they're feeling cruddy. You know what I mean?
They're feeling lousy. Yep.
Yeah.
And
All of the
there's
above.
two feelings. Yeah, there's two feelings. One is a lot of those people don't want to reach out to you because they feel guilty.
Yep.
Because they have a job. Second of all, they're too busy to reach out to you because now they just picked up my work. And
Right.
so, now they're working 60, 80 hours a week instead of 40 to 60. And
Mhm.
so, the feeling is just, it's almost like, that these are not the people who are going to help you. So you have to start looking outside that job,
Mhm.
social circle, so to speak,
Right.
to really start picking yourself up.
Well, and now I want to transition to that. And I actually have a poem I'd like to share. It's by Apollinaire, Guillaume Apollinaire. But it's basically this, and it's that concept of being on the edge of the cliff. Come to the edge, he said. We can't, we're afraid, they responded. Come to the edge, he said. We can't, we will fall, they responded, right? And this is, I see you, right, that moment of, I've lost my job, standing on, come to the edge, he said. And so they came, and he pushed them, and they flew.
Yep.
Right? It's that,
That's
and that's where we're at right now in your story, because you're standing on the edge of that cliff and you're like, I'm going to fall.
Yep.
Now let's talk about that. What did the flying look like?
Well, it's you have to draw strength from somewhere and someplace, right? So you look, for me, it's about perspective, and it's about looking around at people that I've worked with, people that I've been inspired by, people that do things where they just say, this happened to me and my dad said, just get up. And then that happened to me and my dad said, just get up. I'm not talking about my father here. I'm just saying, like, there's people out there who say they've had these struggles, and, the people who might be most sympathetic to them just say, get up. They don't say, oh, I'm sorry, let's coddle you, right? It's get up. So that was my thinking as well. Is like, I really don't have a lot, I don't need people to feel sorry for me. I've been laid off. I'm not alone. I'm not the first one this has ever happened to. I've actually been somebody who's had to lay other people off in the past, and I feel awful about that. And so I'm like, look at all these courageous people who've come before me, who've bounced back, right? And so many times they end up doing something even more amazing after the layoff than they did before. And so I said, this is an opportunity to do a few hopeful special things. One is, of course, just, special enough to be employed again someday. But other things like reach out to other people and try to lift them up too. And so it's funny, one of the things that I had become discouraged about my job a couple weeks before. So in a funny way, the layoff day was actually a bit of a relief, because I was losing sleep over the fact that I was a industry specialist role in my company, and therefore I wasn't managing people. Right. I wasn't a button pusher, so to speak, or the hands-on keyboard type, actually sending out campaign work. And we know that those are the people who are most critical to keep in a crisis. So I kind of knew that my days were potentially numbered. And so again, by the time the layoff happened, I was actually relieved. But a few things that I had done before then, it was like, I tried to call somebody. I put literally a calendar invite on my calendar every day at 11, and I'll do a little Ghostbusters take. The calendar invite was, who are you going to call? And I literally tried to call somebody every day around 11:30, even before I got let go, just to say, how are you coping with the virus crisis? How are you coping with the lockdown and all that?
So you went on offense. You were proactive. You were
right.
Well, and I think one of the lessons, and I wanted to point this out earlier, and before we get too far away from it, I think one of the good lessons that people can take away from your experience as well is, don't wait till you need your network to talk to your network,
right?
Because it is going to
100%.
feel it is going to feel opportunistic potentially to some people.
Yes.
That I don't hear from you when things are good. I only hear from you when things are bad. And so I think, again, those of you tuning in, who are those critical network people in your network that you haven't reached out to in a while,
right?
And do what Michael did, get into a rhythm of reaching out. And it can be an email. I mean, it doesn't have to be a
Yep.
call. Calls are great.
That's correct.
It can be an email. It can be a text. It can be Paul is a very big fan of the Facebook. So it could be a Facebook messenger.
LinkedIn Messenger.
Exactly.
You could do and those LinkedIn recommendations too are huge.
Yeah.
I've done those for over
Those are
the
subtle.
years. It's subtle, but you can also, reach out and just say, hey, been thinking about you, or, I just saw that you did this. Congratulations. Work anniversaries, things like that. You get all those notifications. It's easy to now,
It gives you something
right from your desk, tell somebody that you're thinking about them.
Yep. Great.
So that really helped me, and that made it easier for me to literally start, I'll call it dialing for dollars on Wednesday after the layoff, and not dialing for dollars in a selfish, self-promoting way, but more like, hey, I got to get back to, the level of income and earnings that I was at a few weeks ago, right? So let me start figuring out how I'm going to get, contributing to my family again in terms of having a job.
And you've already warmed these relationships up. So you're not coming in cold. So you pick up the phone and you say, hey, Chris Marriott, it's Michael Lewis.
And this happened. Happened literally. I think it might have been Wednesday or Thursday that same week. And and usually what I do, and everybody has their own approach. My approach is text first, then call. Hey, got a few minutes, Chris? I've been reduced and forced, or whatever I called it, and wanted to just check in with you and something to that effect.
They're real direct.
And you don't. Here's the thing: you don't want to really. You basically have, you have to respect that other people are still busy, and other people have lives. I always say that you are the CEO of your own career, right? And so you're the only one who's thinking about your career 24/7. And that's okay. Don't get mad at the rest of the world because they're not thinking about your career the whole time.
Right.
If you want to get people on your side, you have to get right to the point. So, it could be, hey, Chris, hope you're well. Just wanted to reach out, let you know, in between jobs again, and wanted to discuss, brainstorm with you ideas about potentially getting back in the workforce.
Can I say one thing about this? When I was on staff with Young Life, we had to raise a budget, right?
Yes.
One of the rules we had was you needed to have 7 different touches before you made your ask. It didn't have to be an in-person touch, but it could be an email, a text, a like, whatever, a call. But you wanted to warm it up. That way there's this sense of, oh, no, great to hear from you.
Yes,
and so it sounds like, and then when you do make the ask, you are, sort of radically honest, right? Like,
yes, you are. You have to be. This is not a time to dance around and say, hey, how you doing? And how's the family? And usually the recipient is saying, where is this going? I haven't heard from this person. And again, while I've tried to keep my network warm, I don't talk to everybody in my network every day. So sometimes it was 45 or 90 days since I had spoken to somebody. So I had to really be clear why I was reaching out. Another good example beyond Chris was a boss of mine for 7 years. Her name was Pam McAtee. She's now at Oracle. She's extremely well networked. And so she was another person I reached out to. And I was like, hey, Pam, I'm just looking for ideas. Obviously I'm interested if Oracle's hiring, I'm a free agent again. And literally Pam, took 15 minutes with me, and she said, write these things down. Here's 3 guys that I want you to call. I will reach out to them and tell them ahead of time that you're going to call them. And so she was like literally just throwing ideas at me, within 15 minutes. That's all the time that she took. That's all I needed. It's 15 minutes more than I would have expected from her. And all of a sudden I got 3 other leads to go chase that she's introduced.
Well, and you were also strategic in who you reach out to. You're not just like, hey, anyone on the list. You're looking at it going, who are my ringers? Chris Marriott.
Yeah, exactly. Who are the really well networked people?
Right.
Those are the people that start thinking of first, right? And then of course you're also thinking of things like who is my former company's competitors. Right. I'm not trying to dump my company, but I'm like, well, those are I'm probably more marketable to those companies.
Right.
Other because you've got some inside knowledge. I want to get. So you had started your blog, your career blog, and what is it called again? Careerlicious.
It is called Careerious, for the serious career. So a little combination of words of career and serious.
Okay. And you had started that long before this layoff.
Yes.
And it was more about your journey, correct me if I'm wrong, your journey, and like your book was, and I hope you hold up the cover of the book at some point, but
Oh yeah,
your
we'll do
book,
that. Yeah.
okay. What made you, I mean,
I'm sharing the Careerius.
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Paul. That is our
So
website.
for those of you listening, we're looking at Michael's blog. So what made you, I mean, we all can't help but feel a little bit of stigma. At least I know I still do, when you're laid off. And while part of you says, yeah, for people that can help me, I'm going to let them know, I'm going to talk about it, and but for the rest of the world, it's not necessarily something we want to broadcast. You, however, did exactly that. You turned a blog that was more talking about career and decisions on what you do with your career into really a what to do list if you're like me, Michael Lewis,
Yes,
laid off.
that's right.
At what point did you decide to make that pivot, and how hard was it to sort of bear to the world your experience of having been laid off and now looking for work?
It was uncomfortable. But I knew that this would be a way that I could help people at a time where I could not financially help people. Right? Here I am. I don't have income anymore, so I can't just keep donating money to good causes and things like that at the moment. I've got to be budget savvy.
Yep.
But I still want to, I've just been really warmed up by a lot of the good that's happened out in the world since the virus crisis began. Right? You just see stuff. Obviously the first, the first responders, grocery store clerks, nurses, all of that, have done amazing things, right? I'm like, what are some little things that I could do to help people? I mean, one of the main, bad outcomes of the virus crisis is people are out of their jobs. So I know something about job hunting. I know something about interviewing, and I know who like the candidates are that I think are going to be good for a company that I'm with, as opposed to those who are not, so interviewing tactics, things like that. I was like, I got something I can share with the world. So let me get out there. And I will say this, I'm going to name drop here one of your prior guests.
No, it's okay. We'll take them. We'll take them. We'll
fair
get
enough.
We'll
fair
get
enough. Yeah. MK Marsden,
yes.
your interview a couple episodes ago. MK and I are good friends from the days that we both reported into Mr. Marriott at Digital Impact. And MK was one of my first probably 10 calls after the layoff. And she knew that I had this website cooking. She knew about a book that I wrote and all that. And I was like, something, I was really talking about MK, like I'm thinking about starting to publish, my blog more openly. Like I'd been publishing it, but I just kind of left it on the website and figured maybe someday I'll get it out there on LinkedIn, but I really hadn't yet. And MK kind of said, what are you waiting for? Like, the world needs your information. There are people who could benefit from it. Yeah. Why are you so hesitant? Quit, get off your backside a little bit, Michael, was kind of what she said. And she's like, don't be afraid to be bold. Don't be afraid. I kind of was afraid of being too self-promoting. That's kind of what my fear was.
That's
and
fair.
It's like, this is not self-promoting when you're actually sharing, tricks of the trade that other people can benefit from. So she was a little bit of the, push me over the proverbial cliff, Paul, in your analog. She pushed me over the cliff, and I did start to fly.
Love this. Love it. So
thank you, MK, if you're listening.
Oh, I'm sure she's listening. She's a big fan now. So tell us about, you and I have talked about, in fact, I know that you got 2 offers in 1 week. And I like to say, and I've said it on the show in the past, that when you're out of work, you rarely see the job coming. It's like a lightning strike.
Yes.
Talk about, and which is why nobody should get, too despondent, because,
exactly,
because you're not going to see it coming. Most of the time, you're not going to see it coming.
Right. Right.
You and I talked about it a little bit, and that was a little bit your experience as well. I mean,
sure.
You went from 0 to 100 in 1 week. You had 2 great offers, and now you went from, am I ever going to work again, to which job's better?
It really, and by the way, before we get to the two jobs, there was a period of time where I had my own set of doubts, right? Because I had been cranking out my 9 to 5, 8 to 4 work days looking for a job. I literally was spending every weekday, except 1 or 2 days off in late April, just literally looking for a job. And so in the month of April, it was kind of a dead month. Nothing really was cooking. May then began, and all of a sudden it's almost like spring and blooming of, flowers and all that. Like things seemed to open up. I was getting past HR screener interviews, and then I began to have a little bit of hope. But when we got to the 2 week, the 2 job offers in 1 week, what was crazy about this was that one of them was a very methodical interview process. There was 4 steps over 4 weeks. And I kept thinking that after the first step and the second step, I would tell my wife, I was like, I got like maybe a 20% chance of this going anywhere, right? Plus it was an application online, which almost never turned into anything, right? Like this was an online cold application. I didn't know anybody at the company. I was like this, literally this was my 1 in 70, 1 in 80 hit. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way, I'm lucky that they're taking my call, right? Because most of the time you get those anonymous, hey, thanks for sending your resume, confirming receipt, we're putting in this circular file, and maybe someday you'll hear from us, right?
Right. Proof positive that any sort of job application process is proof positive that black holes do exist.
Black holes very much do, and the concept of ghosting, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's lightning was kind of like, well, I'll call it heat lightning on that case, right? Because that took 4 weeks, and every step I took, I felt like I was at least earning my way to the next step. I had to take it tests.
Wow.
Math. I had to do math. I had a calculator out one morning. I was doing this online test, and I felt like, oh, I'm tanking this thing. I was like, because it was one of those tests where it's timed, so you really never have enough time to actually finish the test. And so I was like, man, that's going to be bad. But they said I did well, so I was like, okay. So the next step was an interview with their VP of North American Ops. I was like, all right, I'm okay at the interview process. So let's get through that. Yep. And then the next step and final step was a big presentation about how to go to market on their behalf for their product. And I had to come up with 25 points of contact that that I would be comfortable calling, and in my first week on the job to make sales pitches to. And so what I did with those, I actually reached out to 5 of them, and I asked a couple of them to just write me a quick email back saying, I would take Michael Lewis's call. I'd be happy to learn about your company and your offering. And I put that in my presentation, including 2 that were videos.
Nice.
So the videos really helped the cause a little bit, because now they're seeing people, real people, not just my word, but their word, saying that they would take my meeting and take my call if I was with their company. Well, so that was the developing lightning. And then the other one we can talk about in a second. That was the real, that was the electrical lightning.
Yeah. I like that you were creative in your presentation. I mean, I think we're in a creative space, right? And
yes.
Creativity is celebrated, right? And so the idea of, do you think people will take your calls? Actually, I do. Hold on.
Right. Well, that's kind of what it was. It was like, don't take it from me, take it from them. Right. And I sprinkled the 5 of them into the presentation throughout. So I had kind of one right at the beginning to kind of hit them over the head, and then I had a video right at the end that I just wanted to cap it, just to kind of close the deal, so to speak. And again, I had a week and a half to put together the presentation. The HR or the recruiter was really by my side the whole way. She was giving me coaching and guidance about how it would, how you could be successful. She said, less is more. So I was like, all right, this is not going to be a big slide fest. This has to be, I have to make my hits very impactful when each slide I throw up there.
Got it. All right. So let's hear about the other side of the lightning storm.
Well, this is the blessing of networking and leaving on good terms when you work at companies,
which we talked about in the Ryan Phelan episode. So proof that works.
Yes,
Michael
exactly.
Lewis positive.
So I worked at Epsilon for 7 years, from 2009 to 2016. And most of that time I was a head of client services, and head of client, there was like 4 heads of client services. So all of us worked for Pam McAtee for most of that time. And we each had a portfolio of business. And we were evaluated on the ability to keep the business we had, make it more strategic, have good client satisfaction scores, but also growth. And so we were charged not only with growing organically, but we were charged with actually helping our salespeople close new deals that we would be an active participant in from usually like 10% in all the way through the close and the contract signature. So I got a lot of good sales experience during those 7 years. And I got to work with a lot of the salespeople at Epsilon during that time. And one gentleman was a colleague of mine back in that era, where we closed a couple of big deals. We closed Cablevision together before Cablevision got scooped up by I believe it's AT&T.
Yep.
It's been a while. Or Time Warner Cable first, then AT&T. We closed Children's Place and we closed Dick's Sporting Goods. So we were on a run. And then I had a great opportunity to join another company. So I left and joined that other company for a couple of years. But I feel like I left a decent impression on a lot of those sales colleagues of ours as I exited. In fact, I mean, we were literally closing one of those deals with this colleague of mine the week that I was parting Epsilon. And I think we all know about, if you got kids who are graduating high school and they've gotten into college, right? What's the number one thing in the second semester of senior year? It's the senior slide, right?
Right.
So I could have senior slided my way out of Epsilon, but I was literally trying to help close a deal my final week there. And I think we left a good impression on some of my colleagues. So while I was networking over the last couple of months, I was talking to a lot of Epsilon and ex-Epsilon people, just getting the word out. And interesting, I didn't connect with this colleague of mine until late in the game, but it was after he found out that I was a free agent. So he reached out to me and said, how would you like to do sales with our company again? Because he's now head of sales.
Nice.
So being a good colleague to somebody who was in a individual contributor sales position 4 years ago, who's now running the sales team, is a good thing. And that was how lightning struck. So I got one time this time around.
That's so great.
And
That's so great.
Yeah. Count your blessings though, right? I mean, and just, obviously you create your own luck a little bit, but you still have to have some luck as well.
And the other company was probably, why did we take so long to offer him the job? We could have had him off the market.
Yes. If we had done all those cycles in 1 week, I would have been at that company.
Right. You would have been at that company. And so hiring companies, if you're interested in somebody, there's a good chance somebody else is interested in that person, and you better get the offer out.
What?
Yeah. At the same time, I respect the process. They were very deliberative. They had 6 or 7 candidates go through it. It was like a little bit of like a college entrance exam type of thing. And so I respect that that they were thoughtful about it. And they probably thought that they had the luxury of time, because most people are losing jobs right now, not gaining jobs. So,
well, I think I want to point out, we brought this up in Ryan's episode as well. I think that the fact that 2 offers came in the same week, I mean, I don't think that's by chance. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, I ascribe it to sort of God sort of being that the book, The Alchemist, they said, follow the omens. Again,
Inspire to help you. Yep.
My goal is not to
good book,
proselytize right now, but to say, man, it feels like there's something bigger than you part of it, right? Because
but you got to do the work too. So mind you, these things, the job offers happened 9 weeks into my hunt. They did not happen in week 2 or week 3.
Right.
There was a lot of empty weeks, a lot of shutouts or 0 for 4s. And so it did take a while. And so a lot of people are, congratulating me now, saying, wow, that was quick. You think? It wasn't quick for
9
me.
weeks is quick, right? I mean, that's
it is on the whole. On the whole, it's quick, but it doesn't feel quick when you're going through it. And so the empathy that I want to pass along is there's still a lot of people looking.
Yep.
And, I'm making it a mission to try to help, 4 to 5, 6 people a week, even again, like my old boss, Pam, and like Chris did, throw, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Here's a call. Here's an introduction I can make. Again, Chris made some intros to a couple of good companies that I did get to talk to, so, much appreciated. And that's the type of thing that I want to be paying forward as we
Right.
go forward, because there's still a lot of hurting out there.
What does that look like for one of our listeners or watchers? They want to, you've got these 15-minute slots. What does that look like?
Well, I'm doing it already, right? And what it is, hey, reach out to me if there's, you see somebody in my network that you want to get introduced to. If here's a bunch of companies that I've worked at or for or with as a vendor, or here's some clients or partners I've worked with. These are companies like I feel comfortable making introductions. And
Right.
this serves all kinds of purposes, right? I get to keep in touch with people, keep my network warm.
Right.
I get to introduce them to talented people so that hopefully they're grateful that I'm introducing them to people that are high potential for them. And then the talented people, colleagues, former colleagues, and sometimes strangers who I'm connecting with, like they're people who I want to give them the break.
Right.
I want to give them their break. So, sometimes it's just an introduction. Sometimes I'm not the greatest at like reviewing a resume, but like, it's more like, let me, here's some ideas for you. And here's some people I can get in touch with, and, study the company, let me know what you could do there. And then I'll make the introduction.
Cool. And I also want to make sure we have time to talk about your book.
Yes.
Sure. I've heard of the book. Here's a little fun thing for you. So anybody who's either thinking about writing a book or has written or wants to write a book someday, like these are two covers, and this is the beauty of we can bust on Amazon all day, but Amazon has democratized the book writing process.
Absolutely.
It has created access for
Yep.
people like me. I wrote the book, not worrying about it. I never had to worry about it getting published or going to get it approved by a publisher. I also got to write the book that I wanted to write in my voice, not the book that the voice that the publisher per se might want, right?
Yep.
And so, and one of those book covers was a cover I created. Another one was a cover that my editor created. And I did put it out to a pre-vote before I released the book, just to see which cover was resonating with people the most. And the one with the crooked arrow to represent the crooked career path that I have, and that many people do, won out the day. And
that
yeah,
is spectacular, because I have the same story. This is the one I didn't go with.
Yep.
This is the one I did, right? Because
I love it.
and I just grabbed it because I knew you'd written a book. I was like, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Amazon has democratized this whole thing where I don't like that, just upload.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Change the cover, sub in, sub out. By the way, you can self-edit as we go forward too. If I see a mistake or a typo, I can go in and correct it for the next people who buy the book.
Right.
There was if that was my career, it would not only be a twisty arrow, there'd be a bunch of gaps, like cliffs in the arrow where
you have one of those bridges, right?
Where you have
to walk across. Right. Yeah.
Gosh, I'm the only, I'm the only one who's not an author on the show today. I wish I had my band CD. I'm gonna bring that next week. So
that's right. Yeah, not all of us can be in a band, Chris. That's
yeah.
for sure.
I'm a
No, Chris, you have value. Like, don't do that, Chris.
I may not be an author, but I'm a recording artist.
That's right. That's right. We all have our talents, Chris.
So you published this book. People are reading it. Has that yielded some value to the people who are reading it, to you, the community as a whole? Are you glad you did it? Because it's like birthing a child.
Oh my gosh, this was a heavy exercise, Paul. So you are absolutely right. It is, there are parts of it that are way easy, and then there are parts of it that are just overwhelming, right? And I think, so it's not for the faint of heart, so to speak.
Right.
But to answer your question, the book has resonated with the people that I was hoping it would resonate with. This was never about trying to, make royalties or, be a bestseller. It was really about a message. In fact, the book's about a lot of people that Chris and I used to work with at Digital Impact. And so as I was beginning to announce that the book was about to be published, I reached out to everybody I mentioned in the book and say, hey, this book is coming out.
Right.
I don't want to profit off of you, but you're in the book, usually first name, last initial. And so I'll send you a PDF version. if you'd like
Right.
if you want a free version. And so that's helped, and that got some buzz out about it. And then of course, once I published it, I put it on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and that really helped some people. So I've got some people who I don't know who have read it and that have appreciated it. And then I've got some of our digital impact friends who have read it and said, wow, that, there's more to your story, Michael, than I would ever know. And the reason I think a lot of people appreciate it is because you're basically hearing my inner voice throughout the whole book. So like, I'm basically talking to my audience about, I've switched careers.
Yep.
I used to be an accountant. Now I'm a digital marketer. I'm getting put in front of clients, and I haven't done digital marketing for more than a month.
Right.
But I have to present myself as a digital marketing expert.
Right.
So like my inner voice is saying to the audience, am I a fraud? What am I supposed to say here? How am I supposed to present myself as some subject matter expert when I just got into business? Will I get fired in a week or two because people will found me out, so to speak? And will I have to go back to the old career? So all that inner confidence challenge was I think the piece that seems to resonate the most with people is like, wow, you actually, so other people talk like me. So other people doubt themselves. Other people have that imposter syndrome.
Right.
And the answer is, of course, yes. Yes, we all do.
Yeah, and those of you who are tuning in and wondering if I'm in the book, yes. Do I come across looking pretty good? Yes.
Hell yeah. Yep.
So,
we could put,
I'm pretty sure that was the question on top of everyone's mind is, how does Chris look in this?
yeah.
And he does look good. And I'll tell you what, like Chris was my boss from 2004 to 2007. And I like to call out the year 2006 as a very special year. I think we had one person quit the New York office the entire year. And her name was Brittany, also in the book. And she decided to, basically take care of her family. She wanted to just, basically manage her family. And so I remember towards the end of 2006, I was like, Chris, do you realize like 15% average turnover at an agency, and we have like zero.
The attrition rate, that's remarkable to have that low of an attrition rate.
It was
lightning in a bottle.
Perfect situation. Yep.
Yeah, we got lightning in a bottle there. I mean, I think everybody who worked there then would say that, well, almost Camelot. I mean, we're never going to get that again, no matter where we are, where we're working. We're never going to get everybody rowing in the same direction, fighting because that was also right after the San Mateo office had sent all of their East Coast clients to us, and we lost every single one of them because they were all unhappy to begin with. And that's why they offloaded them on us.
That's exactly right. We inherited a bunch of clients on ice in the ICU.
Exactly.
Oh, here's a great one, guys. Here, take this, New York. Here's a great client.
Love it.
And then we inherit them, and they're like, "Oh, we're about to leave."
Yeah, but then we show up for the first meeting, and you're yelling at us. You guys, we never.
Right.
But we survived.
Talked about lightning a couple times. Lightning in a bottle, flash lightning. I feel like maybe that's a beautiful transition over to the lightning round.
Oh, I like that.
I like that. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, well done.
You see how I keep that up for you, Chris?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well done. Okay, this is the Boston edition of the. Now, Michael had said he lives in Jersey, but I believe you grew up in Boston.
I grew up in southern New Hampshire. I'm actually in my parents' home in southern New Hampshire right now.
Okay,
so I'm calling you from New England.
The Boston metro area, so to speak. Okay, so anyway, this is the Boston metro area edition. I'm going to give you one word. Actually, there's one of them has two words, but I'm going to give you one word, and you say the first thing that comes to mind, and we'll typically deep dive into one of your answers try to understand your psyche a little bit better. Okay, so let's get, without any further ado, first word, lobster.
Oh.
Trap.
Lobster trap. Okay. Parquet.
Floor.
Oh, nice. All right.
You wanted me to say butter, didn't you?
No.
I did.
Next word, green.
Monster.
Nice. Okay.
I'm probably
Tunnel.
too predictable for you here.
Well, there's. Let's see what we do with this one. Next one, tunnel.
The Big Dig.
Ah. All right. Here's the final one. Fan favorite.
Oh, wait, the question is fan favorite? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I blew this one.
Fan favorite.
Oh, there's many. But I'm going to go with Tommy Brady.
Tom Brady. All right. Well, I thought, Paul, we weren't going to get a bad answer, but we did. But we did. It was touch and go. Every other
Was
every other
fan
one,
favorite? Did I blow it up on fan favorite?
Yeah, fan favorite. The right answer, or
The right answer.
the correct answer would have been fan favorite David Inman, because that's
Right.
what he's known as these days, our producer, David Inman.
See, if you said producer, it would have immediately been David Inman. But
Right.
again, I've said this off camera before, but I'm writing a second book, but the third book, as we said earlier off camera, is going to be about David Inman.
Well,
As it
right.
should be.
And his career, I mean, look how far he's come just from our first episode. I mean, he's the toast of the town.
Absolutely.
Well,
where you go without David?
Well, exactly. The show wouldn't exist without David, and his subtle reminders every Monday morning to me not to forget to create the lightning round, which I've forgotten many times, but not recently.
No,
Anyway,
well done.
Michael,
Well done.
it's been great having you on the show.
Absolutely.
Your story of an unbreakable career, I think, Paul and I we like people that have good stories. You do. We like people who are inspiring. You are, and so you're checking all of our boxes, and we like people who are honest and authentic, and you clearly check those boxes as well. We talk about things that, as you say, as you said earlier, it's uncomfortable a little bit, even on your blog, going into what you're experiencing, but I think we grow by dealing with things that are uncomfortable.
Right.
Definitely do. It's never fun going through it, but when you look back on it, you say, oh wow, look at all the things I learned from that.
Exactly. And it makes it easier. I mean, Lord knows it's getting laid off for me has gotten a lot easier over the years.
Right.
Right.
I got my first practice as well.
Good. Well, my dad once said to me, you're not standing out enough on the job if you've never been sued or been laid off. So
Yes.
I've been both. So my dad would be
heroes among men, Chris.
I've been sued twice, and I won't go into the other numbers.
I've heard if you've never been scared, embarrassed, or hurt, it means you never take chances.
Exactly.
Right.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
All right.
Not my original. Yep.
Thanks again, Michael. Great having you on the show. For fans of David Inman, we'll be bringing him on in the outro, and Paul will be sharing more stories about his trip to Vermont. But Michael, again, we thank you for your time today, and we'll have to have you back in one of the later seasons, hear how your new job's going, and see where your blog is going.
Absolutely, anytime.
And that's careerist.com. That's how they can get to that. The name of your book again is?
The Vulnerable Career Switcher with the Crooked Path.
The Vulnerable Career Switcher with the Crooked Path. Michael.
And it's Michael Patrick Lewis, because if you look up Michael Lewis on Amazon, you're going to find a lot of books, but none of them his. So get that Patrick in there.
That's right. Throw in the Patrick.
Throw in the Patrick. All right. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you from New Hampshire.
All right.
Well, happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th. All right. Welcome to the after show. As usual, we are joined by fan favorite producer David Inman.
Hello.
And today we're going to hear a little bit more about Paul's trip to Vermont.
That's true. That's true.
Well, those of you who were joined us last week may recall that Paul asked for a scavenger hunt of pictures that he needed to take. Good news for him is I didn't write them down, and why is David Inman, fan favorite David Inman, have my name on his picture and his name on your picture?
What are you talking about?
Paul Stuffer. Okay. Anyway, there's a good bit. Anyway, so Paul, what do you got for us?
Well, Chris, I have good news and bad news. When I first left the great state of Vermont, I was very excited about the scavenger hunt. And so we did find a covered bridge right away. It was not difficult. That is directly outside the farm we were staying at.
Nice.
Problem is, it's like a 16 and a half hour drive without stops. And so very quickly I lost interest. There was a point where I was looking for an Arby's so that I could get the picture in front of the Arby's, and hunger overtook us. I mean, so anyway, just one of the 5 pictures requested. So 20% fine.
I mean, that's horrible.
I'm embarrassed to even look you in the eye.
I mean, you could have photoshopped, faked some pictures.
That's true. But I feel like for our audience, they've come to expect honesty. You know what I mean, at its core value. So I didn't want to fake something that wasn't real.
And on the other hand, we've got a small pug licking the back of David Inman's head, producer David Inman's head.
I do have a couple thoughts I learned about Vermont, though. Can I share those, Chris?
Yes, please.
The kids were put to all kinds of hard work, and I was blown away at their ability to respond and shine. And so, if there's, there we go. If there's one thing that did come up is that you can do far more than you think that you can, because they just absolutely crushed it on so many kids. So that's one thing I learned about Vermont. I also learned, Chris, that you can put maple syrup on anything. And they do. It's magical. It takes 10 parts of maple
sap
to make 1 part maple syrup. And so you can put maple syrup on anything. And then, I think that's it. Those are the exciting parts of what I learned in Vermont.
Well, my wife wanted to know, what did you guys eat?
Oh, I mean, it was maple syrup every meal, more or less.
No, I mean, was there like a chow line? Was there?
No. So Joe DeSena, who we had on as a guest, he owns much of Pittsfield, Vermont, including the general store. And so the general store, which has a industrial kitchen, essentially made food for everyone and did a fantastic job.
So, did you go like a cafeteria style or family style on the table?
Yeah, they bring trays of food and at the picnic tables the kids would eat, and yeah.
But you at one point you told me that they were not feeding them a lot of food.
Right. The goal was to keep them hungry, right? Like lions are more aggressive when they're hungry, was kind of the idea.
But it was 3 squares a day nonetheless.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And did everybody go home when you guys went home, or are there some kids still there?
No, we left a little bit later than everyone else, because the death race that the kids went through ended at about 7:00 in the morning. They were up all night pushing things and carrying things and sitting in the river. I mean, it was. I know. And so I couldn't drive on zero sleep. So I got about 2 hours rest, got on the road.
So it wasn't 16 hours as you initially pitched.
No, Chris, it was. Well, I don't know. We started at about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and ended at about 7 a.m.
Oh, I guess that is 16 hours. Yeah.
I mean, it was man. God bless those kids. They worked so hard.
Did they get in the car and just pass out?
They were done. They were just done. But I do have a question for you, Chris. It came up. I had 16 and a half hours of driving. And one thing that you've and I believe you also got it from another one of our guests, Adam, about shows and having large heads.
Yes.
Will you state that real quick for me?
Yes. According to Adam Curry, that people with big heads look better on TV than people with small heads, and which made me happy because I have a big head. In fact, I have to order my baseball caps from a special big head website.
Which, we all have a cross to bear. So right. The question I have is, and this goes back to my social psychology days from my undergraduate degree, BA in psychology. And this literally came up like the first 10 minutes of the drive. So I had 17 hours to formulate this, Chris.
All right.
Asymmetric faces the more asymmetric your face is, the more appealing you are. And so, I'm saying, Chris, that asymmetric, symmetric versus like one side looks like the other. So you can see how this eye, might be a little bit more squinty than this eye, right?
Yep.
And so the question I have for our listeners, the big controversy this week, leave it in the comments, emails, I don't care. Tweet about it. What's more important, asymmetric faces or big heads?
Interesting. And just so we're clear, an asymmetric face means the two sides are not mirror copies of each other.
Exactly, Chris. Exactly.
So, okay, you would think symmetric would be better.
I'm telling you, Chris. Social psychology class. Unless I was sleeping through that lesson, which I don't think I was, I'm willing to put my asymmetric face against your big head any day, and I believe I'm going to have more engagement on the topic.
So you're saying you're better looking than me?
I'm not, Chris. I'm saying I have a more asymmetric face than you.
Okay. David Inman, I mean, if you could take a second away from having the back of your head licked by a dog, do you have any input on this asymmetric theory of Paul's?
I wish I'd done some research of my own to find out which of my imperfections makes me better suited for the camera before going into this call. I feel unprepared.
I get it. That's spectacular. Well, and so again, but that's the thing, David, if you had come in prepared, guns a-blazing, right? We don't get that natural response. And so if you had to pick right now, asymmetric face versus large head, where do you go?
I think my sample size is too small. I've got one asymmetric face I'm looking at right now, and I've got one big head I'm looking at right now. And I can't tell that either of those things are true, honestly. Like Chris, I've never seen you in person, and I wouldn't have guessed that your head was big outside of you telling us that it's big.
Well, I mean, I don't look like some sort of Don Martin creation, but I mean, it's a very subtle big. I mean, my head's about a half inch bigger than than the normal range. In other words, it's true, Paul. In other words, I mean, let's take a typical baseball cap that has. I wish I had one in here. I wish I'd been prepared. But those baseball caps where you can make them bigger or smaller. The plastic thing in the back. If I wear a regular baseball cap, I have to go to that last little one. I just clip one of those things, and it's just barely hanging onto my head.
Sure.
And most people go 2, 3, 4, 5 of those clips in. I one. Now, if I go to my big head hat store, I comfortably can clip my hat, like everyone else, and several of the I clip it, on 4 or 5 of those little nubs. So, but I think my head's like 7 and something, and 7 1/4 inches, and that's a big head.
Big head, Chris. No one is arguing with your big headedness. The scale of your head.
But again, it's not like my neck is blowing a bubble. I mean,
no, I'm just saying, like, I've always smiled where I've got a little bit of a crooked smile, right?
Right.
Right here. You see that? You see how there's a little more gap there?
Yeah,
David,
I guess.
You gotta vote. David, vote. Asymmetric versus large head.
Well, since I can't tell the difference, it just comes down to which one of you do I think looks better right now.
We'll take it.
And I think I'm having connection issues. I don't know, something.
He's trying to stay on all of our good, both of our good side.
That's true. So again, please, if you're still watching, please, we need to know
this
big head versus asymmetric face, and I'm calling glass right now. Asymmetric faces. There's more of us out there. We're gonna get that vote.
No, I think the big head's gonna go. So. We got some great shows coming up in the next few weeks. We're really excited. We've got a famous author. We've got a well-known doctor. No, not naming names yet, but we've got some very interesting people on to round out the rest of season 2. We're very excited, and we hope this big head versus asymmetric hasn't soured you on the podcast series yet. That you'll stay
completely,
or the pug licking the back of
two more housekeeping things worth mentioning.
Yeah.
We have 156 subscribers, which is fantastic. That means 156 people are willing to spend part of their day with us. And so that's cool. Grateful for that.
Yes.
Please like and subscribe. That's how more people hear about it. The other thing that I really want to showcase, and we did this today with Michael, who I thought was absolutely fantastic, and that's showcasing success stories. One of the things that's important to us is to sort of understand and tell good story, right? And when we have these moments where we can go from Ryan to Michael, episode 1 to episode whatever we're on right now, those are really, really cool. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your success stories. Drop us an email at emailgeekscoffee@gmail.com, or just reach out to us one way or the other. We want to hear those stories. We want to feature them.
Yep. And as long as we have stories, we'll keep running the show. So you may not get in this season, you may be next season, but as long as notice how I said that, Paul, as long as Paul and I and fan favorite producer David Inman feel like we still have more stories to tell, we'll keep churning out episodes. So again, if you've got a good story to tell, and that might be helpful for other people to hear, we want to hear about it from you.
Right. So from your favorite asymmetric face
and your favorite big head,
and fan favorite producer David Inman.
Always a pleasure. We will wait. What just popped up in his? Oh, it's gone. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for making it this far in our podcast.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.